No mai haere mai. Welcome to St Matthew in the City in Auckland, Aotearoa, New Zealand. And greetings to our partner churches across the world, from Cape Town to Edinburgh, from London and Paris to Hong Kong to New York to Toronto, and nearer to home to Sydney. It's a real joy and a pleasure to be able to connect with each other through this Lenten sermon series. We are very aware, though, of the suffering that you and the rest of the world are going through. We're lucky enough in Aotearoa, New Zealand, to be leading a relatively normal life, but we know that that could change at any time. And we grieve and mourn with you for the loss of life across the world and in all of your and our communities. We grieve for the loss of life, the loss of livelihoods, and the loss of connections through lack of travel and inability to be with family and friends. And so it's good to be connected with you on this first Sunday of Lent. Today we are with Jesus in the wilderness. The 40 days of his time in the wilderness give us the 40 days of Lent. In Mark's version that we read this year, we don't have the detail of the temptations that Matthew and Luke give us. We have instead the stark picture of Jesus being baptized and hearing those wonderful words, "You are my son, the beloved, with you I am well pleased," and then suddenly, immediately, he is driven into the wilderness. This baptism that he experiences is not a Sunday morning ceremony for family and friends. It's a dramatic public event with dire consequences. Immediately, he is driven into the wilderness. Often I think in our Lenten sermons, we have heard Lent described as a wilderness opportunity, a time for retreat, for refreshment, for refocusing. It's something we choose. And even if it involves giving something up for Lent, we feel better for it. Or sometimes we might hear that wilderness described as those times in our lives when we're grieving a death or a loss, and we know it is a path that must be travelled, and we're told that we'll come out of this wilderness strengthened and renewed. But this Lent, our wilderness experience is so much more than that. The whole world is living this wilderness. It's not something we have chosen at all. It's a wilderness of illness and death, fear and blame, crazy conspiracy theories. Wherever you are from, you are in part of this wilderness. Like the flood that covered the earth in the time of Noah, this pandemic reaches to every corner of the globe. The numbers who have died, the numbers who are ill, the numbers who have lost work and livelihoods are simply too big for us to take in. And the inequities of the suffering too are massive. Lack of health care in so many places, and those carrying the burden of economic loss are often those already with a precarious income. And then people separated across the world, seafarers who never get to go home, refugees who are in their camps even longer. The list is endless. All of these things are the wild beasts which circled Jesus in Mark's wilderness. And behind this long list of beasts are the wild beasts of lack of leadership of some of our governments, lack of action which has allowed the pandemic to spread across our world. Even in a country like New Zealand, where we have such excellent leadership, we suffer every time a bigger government in the world does not act to stop the pandemic. Our borders remain closed, families are separated, families cannot be with loved ones when they're dying or for celebrations. So there are plenty of beasts in this wilderness. But there are also angels. Angels waited on Jesus, Mark says. They served him. The word used for waiting or serving is the same word as a deacon, a servant in the church community. So who are our angels in this wilderness? Well, health workers, obviously, many who have died because of their service. Workers caring for the elderly and the vulnerable. Those working on our streets with people who are homeless. In New Zealand, we have thousands of people working in the quarantine hotels who look after the travellers who must stay there for their first 2 weeks back in the country. Those workers are our angels. The word angel also means messenger. Messengers who speak the truth. So our healthcare professionals again, and scientists who explain what is going on so we can understand why we need to act the way we do. And we can be angels to each other, reminding each other why we need to wear those masks and why we need to stay home even when it seems never ending. We can be angels to each other, reaching out across our neighbourhood fences and supporting each other as best we can. We know there are thousands of great stories about neighbours and new friendships and ways people have helped each other. There are also thousands of stories of people who are feeling very alone. And so we are called to be angels, both in serving and in speaking words of truth and words of comfort. And so we reach out to you all across the seas. We reach out with aroha, which means love, and with karakia, which are our prayers. We walk with you in this wilderness and hope to hear the words of angels bringing us the message that the end is indeed in sight. We need to see that rainbow that Noah saw, the promise that the world would never again suffer such a calamity. In our New Zealand prayer book, there are words which we often say at the beginning of a service. It's a song of praise. It goes like this: Christ is the living water, cleansing, refreshing, making all things new. Christ is the living bread, food for the hungry, strength for the pilgrim and the labourer. So now we offer our thanks for the beauty of these islands, for the wild places and the bush, for the mountains, the coast and the sea. From our wild places to yours, may the wilderness of this Lenten time give us the strength to journey to the end of our global wilderness. And we walk this journey with the one who has been there before us, the beloved Son.